Veterans History Project. The last name is spelled Guzman. I am at the Chemung County Historical Society in Elmira, New York. The date is February 11th, 2002. With me is Harold James Wonderling. Mr. Wonderling, would you do basically a name, rank, and serial number thing for us to establish who you are and when you were born and so on?
Well, I'm Harold James Wonderling. I was born in Clarendon, Pennsylvania, which is a very small town in western Pennsylvania. I grew up most of the time in Brookville, which was not too far from there. And I enlisted in the Navy when I was, actually was 16, but I didn't go in until I was 17. And that was in the spring of 1944. Okay. And I served aboard the LST 703, took my basics in Great Lakes, Illinois. I loved the food and I loved being there. I loved being in the Navy. And then we went to Damnick, Virginia for training, gunnery training, and amphibious training. I enlisted with 4 other guys from my hometown, and they were all ended up on LSTs. And
let me stop you for a second for the uninformed LST.
Well, the actual title means landing ship tank, which means we had the big bow doors that opened. We'd take the troops right up on the beach, lower the ramps, open the bow doors, and all of the tanks and half tracks and jeeps and all their equipment, and roughly 200 to 300 troops would invade the island. And yeah, I thought everybody knew what an LST was, but I guess not. There's a lot on the History Channel about LSTs, but we were not a pretty Navy. We were the dungaree Navy, and the ships were slow. And actually, the LST to most of the amphibious guys meant long, slow target. And but we got there at maybe 14 knots at top speed. But we was over there, and I don't know how much you want me to tell. 4 invasions over there, and
I'd like to get to that in a later part of the interview. What I'd like to do is go back to you enlisted at 16, and actually went on duty at 17.
At 17.
Okay, that's young. Why?
I didn't think it was at the time. But yeah, everybody who was at least 30 years old was called Pappy. And yeah, well, before I went in, I was in I worked at Ambridge, Pennsylvania, and a wire made Army field telephone wire.
Okay.
And then I left there and went and enlisted in the Navy, and that was pretty much until the time I went in, and before that there wasn't a whole lot to talk about. I played basketball and
when you went in was because you were very young at the time. What was it the thing to do for guys in your circle of friends to join the military that early? As opposed to most guys who were waiting for the draft, which came up not too much later,
right.
But came up later in life?
Well, yeah, it was. Because as kids, we would gather up scrap metal, we saved tin foil, and we did everything we could to, we even dragged stuff out of the creek down there, drug it home, and took it to the junkyard for metal and so on. And yeah, all of us guys that enlisted, the 5 of us in Brookville there, we were all the same age. And I said if they didn't take me, I wasn't coming back home. That's how bad I wanted to get in. And I know some of my friends that I thought were big, healthy, strapping guys didn't pass a physical.
Mm-hmm.
They had to go back home and maybe eat a lot of bananas or something to get their weight up or whatever. And then they finally got in. But yes, we all wanted to get in. But the reason I joined the Navy was my aunt and uncle bought a house, and I dug the septic tank hole in all the leach field by hand, and I said, I'm not going into the Army, never. I'm never going to dig another ditch.
That's a great one. Yeah, because that was going to be a later question, why the Navy as opposed to the Army or the Marines or something else, and you never wanted to dig. There's not much digging in the water.
No, not aboard ship either.
Okay, so you came from obviously a very patriotic background and region, and it was a patriotic time. Everybody was in the war effort together.
Sure were.
As opposed to more recent times, Korea and obviously Vietnam, where there wasn't that same feeling. I know that there were many who, while you enlisted at 16 and went in at 17, there were some who went in at 16 with forged papers. I wouldn't be surprised if you knew some of those guys.
Yes, I did. Yes.
So, the other thing I'd like to, from the early, your early time in the Navy, Great Lakes. I've always heard that is a very, very cold place and a very uncomfortable place to be. You said that you liked it.
I loved it there. The only thing is, in March, when I was there, in April, that wind would come across there. I mean, and it would just freeze you right in your tracks.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like we had drills where you had to that blow the alarm, and you gave you 3 minutes to get down there and be at attention.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the guys were down there in their underwear, and I was freezing. I managed to get my pea coat on. So yes, it was quite cold.
Yeah. And so the time from when you enlisted until you actually finished your training and went overseas, about how long was that, Jim?
I have the date where we went aboard ship, but it was roughly about 3 months.
That 90-day wonder kind of thing that was evident in all of the services and everything.
Oh, they were cranking them through there fast.
Yeah.
But the training was very intensive, so you learned a lot in a very short time.
In later time, did you find the training to not only be intensive but to be relevant? I mean, did it apply to what you did?
Definitely, yes, that was very good. Yes.
Okay. I look at your resume here, and if you were in uniform right now, you would have an awful lot of stuff on your chest with a lot of medals and stars. The Pacific Campaign Medal with 3 stars, the Philippine Liberation Medal with 2 stars. What do the stars mean?
Well, the stars mean invasions,
Okay.
and the 2 stars on the Philippine medal means ribbon means the invasion of the Philippines. That was a star for that invasion, and the other star is a decoration, a unit citation from the president of the Philippine government at the time, and I don't remember his name.
I don't think anybody else will either.
And there's not too many have that, because it was during the Battle of Surigao Straits there. We invaded the Philippines. We were penned in there, and for 5 days, and the Jap fleet was trying to get in there to annihilate us.
Mm-hmm.
And they harassed us all night long for 5 days and all day. So that was what the decoration was for.
And what kept them out? What saved the day, so to speak?
Well, I can't give you all of the parameters, but
Right.
there was a Jap fleet came down from the north to try to lure Bullhause's fleet up north.
Mm-hmm.
And in the meantime, there was 2 other Jap forces that came in from, one from the north and one more from the south, came in and were going to come in and bombard us in the harbor there and on the beach. But for some reason or another, old Halsey got the word that what was going on, and he had been lured up there, so he sent his fleet of planes out, and they knew that they might have a gallon of gas to get back on by the time they got there. A lot of them didn't make it. Just simply ran out of gas. But that was one of the decisions these people have to make. And but that saved us anyway. By that time, he attacked them and sunk a lot of their attack ships and a couple carriers, and so that put them in a position where they had to retreat. And then he came back and polished off a lot of the ones that couldn't get away.
Now, your ship was the LST 703.
703.
Did it have a name?
No.
Okay. That was not common for LSTs and that kind of ship?
Not common for an LST. Once in a while you'll find one that had a name. I don't know if I guess when they christen it is when they give it a name. But no, we were just a number, and that's even faded out of memory.
For the camera, why don't you hold up? I'm not sure that will be very visible on camera, but that's a picture of the ship, and that's returning after your time in the South Pacific, is that correct?
Yes, this is coming into, we was just ready to go into the Golden Gate, and this is our homeward bound pennant, which every ship, when it serves overseas, is on its way at home, puts a pennant on from the mast down to the stern.
Okay. If the people watching this can't see it, from about 1/4 of the way back, the ship looks charred and it looks damaged. I mean, it looks like it's been through a lot. What caused some of that damage?
Well, a lot of it was we tied up alongside the battleship Pennsylvania to take off their empty brass, and when they were lower in the water, we were quite high in the water because we only had like a 6-foot draft in the back or in the stern. But they had the battleship had scuppers that come out, so when they sweep the water off the deck, it goes in these scuppers and it don't run down along the side of the ship.
Okay.
It keeps it away from the ship, about that far.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we tied up to it and we caught one of those scuppers, and our plating is only 3/8 of an inch thick. 3/8.
Really?
That's it was a what they call a laminated. The grain they had it was like 3 layers, 3/8 inch layers, but they all run a different way to give it strength.
Okay, all right, understand.
And the wood's the same way. Well, we hit their seaplane and damaged that, and then it ripped us about 20-some feet right down across here, just went through beams and steel and everything, just like nothing, just like a can opener, just like that. And they welded that, but apparently the metal wasn't prepared properly when they painted it over in China. And of course we had a bomb hit close to this side, which didn't damage the ship a lot, but it knocked the plates off of the stoves and did some damage down in the engine room.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
How many men would be on the crew of a ship like that, Jim?
I think, well, see, we had, now you see these, here's two LCVPs here.
Yeah.
Okay. And here, there was actually 4 back here. There's 2 empty davits back here and 2 empty davits up here. So we had 6 LCVPs. And being that we had 6 LCVPs, I think a normal crew was like 130. And we had like 143 because we had the small boat crews on there.
Okay.
And they consisted of 3 each. I don't know if my math is correct here, but it'd be 3 6s, yeah, there'd be 18 extra in the crew
Okay.
because of that.
So less than 150 men to operate the ship and all of its functions
Right.
24/7.
Yes.
You were in the Philippines. You mentioned China. Why don't we put that back down so you can relax for a minute? You mentioned China. Where else have you been in this world with the Navy?
Well, we went to I think we stopped in the Admiralties, New Hebrides Group. Then we went to the Philippines, New Guinea, all up through Netherlands, East Indies, Dutch East Indies, China, Japan, Australia, and good old USA.
And very happy to see the good old
Oh,
USA, I would
I'll tell
bet
you
you.
what.
Were the same the landing parties, the troops that went ashore were infantry? Were they Army or were they Marine Corps?
We had, I think, in the 4 invasions that we went in on, they were all Army.
All
I
Army.
don't think we had any Marines. I remember of.
Okay. Once you had discharged the troops on the beach, did you have a continuing responsibility to them, or did you just back out and go on to another mission?
Well, actually, what happened when we'd go in, we had a stern anchor.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd drop that out about 500 feet before we hit the beach. And after we pump ballast forward, and then when you hit the beach, unload your cargo, secure everything, wind in the stern anchor, pump the ballast back aft, which raises the bow off of the beach there, and then the stern anchor pulls us off.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what we'd do, is go and get ready for another one.
Okay.
So
but you didn't have the same unit on board for all of those invasions. You were just assigned, as people were assigned to be carried in by your ship. It wasn't the same unit aboard all the way through.
No, we're all different.
Okay. Shanghai, China. How the heck did we get there?
Well, we had somewhere in the Philippines, we picked up, I think, 500 guys that had been court-martialed, I guess you might say.
Mm-hmm.
And some for major, some for minor offenses, but we took them into China. I think the deal was, if I recall correctly, like if they may have 2 or 3 years of jail time to serve, if they would go over there, well, I don't know what they did there, really, but they would reduce their time to 1 year. If they were 1 year, then they were exonerated, they could go home.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so, they were a pretty good bunch of guys. My tank deck was my responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
I'd go down there and check every now and then. And one guy comes up and he says, "Hey, I'm Boston Blackie." I said, "Oh, okay." He says, "I've got a uniform." He said, "I'll sell you for $50. He said, "It'll just fit you." But it didn't. So I sold it to my buddy for $50. And he don't remember that.
Since we have mentioned Shanghai, this is one of the mementos that Jim brought in. Jim, why don't you hold that up? For those that are familiar with the Navy, the dragon and that kind of emblem are very, very common among Navy men. If the camera can't read it, it says Shanghai across the top. It has Wonderling HJ, Jim's name, and then at the bottom it says China 1945 with the embroidered, and that is embroidery, isn't it, Jim? Embroidered, dragons on it. My recollection of sailors was that one of the places that they liked to have embroidery was on the inside of their cuffs.
Yeah.
And did you have those as well?
I had them and I lost them. I don't know where they went.
Thanks, Jim. Those are real mementos from a time long past. So in addition to the 4 invasions, you had other missions
Yes,
such
sir.
as this one of transporting these, I guess, prisoners, for lack of a better word. What are some of the other the other jobs that you did, or that your ship did, I should say?
Well, what we did was we'd generally go back to where we got the troops from, because we couldn't take all of their supplies with them. And we'd go back and pick up the rest of their supplies and take them back, to the where they
So
were.
basically, each invasion was 2 trips.
A lot of times, second trip was worse than the invasion, a lot worse.
And what kind of distances were you talking about? For I don't know that miles would matter, but like from the time that you picked up the troops until the invasion, how many days would they be aboard with you?
Maybe 4 to 5 days.
Okay, and then a trip back, and then another trip out, another
Okay.
4 or 5 days. So
Yeah, we'd pick up some relief troops and some more equipment and take them back in.
Mhm. So 4 invasions is really 8 invasions,
Yes,
or
yeah.
pretty close.
True.
Okay. Your highest rank was a coxswain, BMG-3.
Well,
What is number one? Tell us what a coxswain does, and what does BMG-3 stand for?
Okay. Coxswain is ever since the beginning of United States Navy has been a deckhand, and he's generally in charge of a boat that they carry, some kind. He's one of these guys that has to know a little bit about everything.
Okay.
And they'll generally, it's like a third class petty officer rating, has 1 stripe. Okay. Now, when I come home, the correspondence I got from the Navy after that, they changed it from coxswain to BMG, which is bosun mate for 3rd class, BMG 3C.
Okay.
So when I go to these meetings that we have, I don't know whether I'm supposed to tell them as a coxswain, or I guess for the older people, I'll say coxswain, because the old Navy guys know what that is.
Mhm.
I understand it, because that's what it was then.
Okay. Bosun's mate is a term that I've heard many times as well. Tell us a little bit about shipboard life on the routine of shipboard life. Okay, not the invasion part, but what did you do day to day, kind of thing, while at sea or while aboard?
Well, when I first went aboard there, they put me up in the conning tower as captain's talker. Well, the captain would give me orders, and over the battle phones, I would relay the orders to the forward and wherever, the engine room or whatever. And that lasted about a week, and I don't think he liked the way I relayed his messages. So anyway, they told me, "You're going to be on the helm." I said, "No, not me. I'm not steering this thing." I said, "Yeah, yes, you are." So anyway, next day I was up there behind the ship's wheel. And most of the time, if your duties were like 4 hours on during a condition where there might possibly be an attack, okay, that we hadn't gotten the word yet, but there's a possibility. So it'd be like 4 hours on, 4 hours off. Your watch would normally lasted 4 hours, was about the limit for any watch. And let's see,
Well, 4 hours off doesn't leave an awful lot of time for anything, eating, sleeping, or anything else, really.
well, actually, I don't think I slept more than 4 hours a night the whole time I was aboard ship. Because there was so much to do all the time.
Mm-hmm.
There would just, to keep the ship in tip-top shape, was scrape the deck, paint the deck, painting here, taking care of the crew's quarters, and just normal maintenance, because salt water has a devastating effect on, and this wasn't like a premium ship. They put a coat of paint on and said, "Okay, that's what you get," And so we weren't at sea more than a week till paint all started to come off. So it was chipping hammers, all day long, just about. Of course, we had a library on there. We had ship's cooks that were busy most of the time, My buddy was a baker, and he baked bread at night and slept during the day. So, but there was always plenty to do, always lots to do.
The other than the invasions, were there places where you landed and where you had liberty, for lack of a better word for it, where you had some time ashore?
Yeah, we would, when we would get to one of the islands that was more secure, they would let us, they'd take some beer on there and sardines. I lived in beer and sardines for years, I guess. And yeah, we'd go ashore and play volleyball, play softball, get in a fight or two, just whatever met, circumstances at the time.
Any interesting places along those lines that you were in?
We had a doctor aboard our ship, and he said, okay, he says, anybody that wants to go ashore, there's a freshwater stream back in the jungle there, if you'd like to go swimming or whatever. So, yeah, I'll go. So anyway, we go through and we get to this army perimeter, and this guy was on guard there, and he says, hey, you guys be careful. He said, there's still Japs around here. So anyway, we went on back through, walked down through these swampy things, and we finally got back to where the fresh water was. Water buffaloes in there. So, and it was nice and sandy, and we were swimming along, and all of a sudden shots started hitting the water. Yeah, and I went under after about the third shot, and I think I was probably blue by the time I got back up. And there was a CB and a native come walking up through there, and he had a rifle. And I said, have you shot that thing lately? He said, no. I said, let me see it. So I took it away from him, and I smelled it. I could smell the cordite, the gunpowder. And I said, you damn near killed some of us. And he said, well, I thought there was these crocodiles. Sorry, I didn't know I looked that way.
Should we even ask the question about his sobriety at the time?
I don't know. He didn't act like he had all the oars in the water, really.
Any other memories of that? Hopefully not as dangerous as that, but any other things from places? What was Shanghai like? Obviously, if you got that embroidery done, you must have had some time in Shanghai. What was Shanghai like in that era?
Actually, they came alongside the ship and took the orders for those.
Oh, really?
Shanghai? Okay, you go into what they called the custom jetty, and there would be rickshaws there, and you could jump in a rickshaw. And there was a French quarter up way up in Shanghai. It must have been a good 2 or 3 miles. And these coolies would run the whole way. I mean, just a dog trot, but the whole way. And I don't know how they did it. I don't even know if they had sandals on. But that was nice up there. It was almost like back home in a way, because we went to a couple of different restaurants up there that had pretty good food. One of them had white Russian people owned it, and that was pretty nice. But it was like, it was a funny thing. They had, I don't know what their glasses were made out of, but when I'd get a drink, I never give the glass back. I just took it and smashed it in my hand and threw it off and across the floor somewhere. I mean, I did this all day long when I was there. Well, I don't know what kind of stuff their glasses were made out of, but I never got caught on it.
Wow.
And when we come back, a bunch of guys and I went into a restaurant in San Francisco. Well, these were a bunch of boots that just got in the Navy, and they loved to hear all these stories, and I said, so I had my glasses, and this is the way we did it in Shanghai, China, and I really didn't mean to break it. But I said, we just squeeze it, and then when I squeezed it, it broke. But that was real glass. That was a whole new ballgame. But Shanghai, China was, at the time, I think the Frank Lloyd Wright building there was the tallest building in Shanghai. And that's because of the earthquakes, and every building they ever had before fell down.
Okay.
And so he goes there and he punches down, you know, maybe 80 or 90 or 100 feet and puts these big columns in with Lubrite pads on. So when the
What
earth
kind of pads?
shakes,
I'm sorry, Jim.
Lubrite, I would assume it was a Lubrite pad. That's what I know of is for heavy equipment, you know, where you have motion like this.
Oh, okay.
And then when they get an earthquake, the ground would move, but the building would stay right there.
Okay.
It didn't shake it apart.
Okay.
But now I see pictures of Shanghai where they have quite large buildings there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How long were you there?
I was in Shanghai, I think, for 2 weeks.
Was that, from what I've heard you say and from what I'm reading here on your biography, that looks like the furthest point in your travels, and like that was the end of the line, and after that it was heading back towards
Heading
the
home.
U.S.
Yeah.
Now, was that after were you in Shanghai after Japan was defeated?
Yes.
After VJ Day, okay.
Yes.
What did you know, or did you even know about the atomic bomb? You know, and what had occurred?
Yes. I was walking up the port side below decks, and the pharmacist mate came toward me. He says, and I was kind of elated in a way, and really didn't understand my feelings at the time, because, you know, I was certainly glad the thing was over with.
Mm-hmm.
But he says, "Hey, Wonderling," he said, "let's celebrate." I said, "Okay." So we go over to the sick bay, and he has this 200 proof, I guess, alcohol they use. And he pours a little bit in the glass like that, and he said, "Now that's all you're going to get. That's all you need."
Yeah.
And so we clicked our glasses and drank to the end of the war.
Mm-hmm. But let me go back to part of my question. The atomic bomb, the dropping on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Were you aware that had happened? And how long after it happened, you know, or was that something that was kind of common knowledge, or what was it?
Well, you know, I don't know how long after they did that we got the word on it. I think it was, best I can recall, it was like we got the surrender and that all basically at the same time.
Oh, okay, okay. So it was basically news that came to your ship from whatever news sources there were, which
Right.
at that time, of course, was censored in great measure.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about censorship. Do you recall the censorship of letters? And I know that you brought some letters with you today that were kept by an aunt,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken.
That's who I was raised by, was aunt.
Okay. How much was censored in those letters? When you got home and saw them, how much of them were there?
Actually, I didn't write things that they would censor. I tried not to. I think there's 1 or 2 letters in there that had something cut out.
Mm-hmm.
But I would try cute little things like, "The weather here is very hot." So
Okay.
they understood what I was saying, because I asked them when I come home, and they said, "Yeah, we knew what you were telling us."
Mm-hmm.
And also I put in there, I made it come out to the end of the letter. I have not heard from Philip Peen lately. So I broke that word up so that they might just kind of skip by it, you know, and
Okay.
it went through okay.
Okay. Was there censorship of your aunt's mail to you?
I don't know, there wasn't. No?
Okay. You know, that just occurred to me because I can remember from my own experience as a kid, the letters coming from my uncle who was overseas but I don't remember if there was censorship in the other direction, if you were able to get everything that was in the news and, you know, available.
Well, I was showing someone these letters, and they said, I said, you know, actually, they knew very little of what I was doing. They knew some, I would tell them the weather's fine, you know, or we were ashore today and we did this or that, but you couldn't write things like that anyway, because they were going to cut them out. There's no use, if you write on both sides of the page, they cut something out of the front, then they cut it out of the back also. So, what I was going to say was, I saw our ship's log. My friend in Delaware, a Navy buddy, has it. It's about that thick. And nowhere in there, when we were under attack, or to mention the invasions, they're not mentioned in there at all.
Really?
No, nothing like that. It was just normal, everyday life aboard ship, and so on like that. I don't know if they even mentioned the typhoon we went through.
Well, since you brought it up, tell us about that experience.
Oh man, I'll tell you what. We started out with I think in a company of maybe 6 other ships. I think they were all LSTs. And we were going to turn into, I'm not sure if it's Milne Bay or where now, but we had to make a right-hand turn. And when that storm hit us, that must have been that morning. And all day long, I think an LST could handle a 45-degree roll without going on the rest of the way over. But we hit 43, you know, and it was hanging right up there, close to 45, because we had one of these, I don't even know what you call them, up there. And, you know, I was never really frightened of the water. I mean, as a lot of guys were, but you couldn't go up on the main deck at all. And there was just no way. Well, anyway, I was in the sack that night, and we had straps you had to put on you to keep you in, because they'd throw you right out of your bunk.
Wow.
And
now, did you have troops aboard?
not then.
Okay.
No, thank God, no, we didn't. But anyway, we these davits here, like this. Okay, when you bring the boat up, which is like this right here. All right. Down in the bottom, along here, there's a bottom safety bar. That's still probably about that long and about so thick, you know, and you shove that in there so that if anything left loose, the boat would stay right up there. But nobody told us there was top safety bars that went in also. So when this ship rolled, those davits didn't go up in the air, roll up on the davits, you know, and then, well, that's what happened. I was laying there trying to get some sleep, and I hear all of a sudden the ship rolled over like this, hung there for a second, come back over, and I heard the office crash. I mean, it just rattled everything. And some kid come running up through the starboard or through cruise quarters there saying, "Abandon ship, we've been torpedoed."
Not an alarmist or anything.
Oh, I know. But I didn't. I just laid right there. 'Cause I knew it wasn't that. So when dawn broke, we were out there all by ourselves. There was nobody else around. I don't know where they all went to. I had no idea. No, they were gone.
Well, I would imagine that you would want to separate ships as far away from each other as possible, since they weren't controllable, really.
No, they weren't, because we'd have port engine ahead full, starboard engine back full, and right full rudder, and the ship would still just keep doing this, going this way. And anyway, oh yeah, I was going to say, that well that we had on there that I was telling you about, that started to break loose. And that got a little bit scary, so I went down and found a CO2. I had my Mae West on, and I found a CO2 to put around my waist, because I figured that I might need it.
Yeah.
That got a little bit hairy, it really did.
That was fairly late in the campaign for you?
I think that was after the war. It was ended.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, how long were you in the Navy after the end of the war?
Probably
Okay.
probably 4 months.
Okay. You came back to San Francisco. You mentioned that to me, I think even before we went on camera, that that's where you came back to, was San Francisco. Was that where you were discharged, was right there when you are fairly soon, or did you go somewhere else after that?
No, I had to, I stayed aboard ship. One of the letters I wrote was like 22 guys went on home on leave.
Mm-hmm.
And it left me and Willie, which I can't remember, and Muse Olavic, which I remember him very well, as petty officers in charge of the ship. But I was pretty angry because I wanted to go home real bad. So anyway, then we stayed there. I think maybe for 2 months.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, aboard ship. There was hardly anybody on there. But I had liberty most of the time. I was in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And then they transferred me to the LST 759.
Okay.
And I took over the deck force there. Every rated man except first class.
Okay.
And they loaded us up with spare parts, and we took them up to Astoria, Oregon. And
Mm-hmm.
then I left. Then we went to Portland, Oregon, and I left Portland, Oregon on a train, and came back to Great Lakes to be discharged.
Okay. All right.
That was a nice trip.
It may not really relate to this project, but let me ask, once you were discharged from the Navy, did you go back home, or since you're now in Elmira and have been apparently for a number of years, did you end up? How did you end up in Elmira? I guess would be part of the question.
Well, I retired from combustion engineering, and I had been and stayed in the carpet business because both of my sons learned the business from me. We go out and work together. So it was nice to keep them off the street, and
Mm-hmm.
give them an occupation, something they could fall back on if they needed it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I retired, I opened up a store up here. My son was up here. He owned a business up here, my youngest son. And so I come up here and kind of liked it. And so I opened up a carpet store down on 14th Street.
Oh, okay. But what got you from Great Lakes to Elmira? How did you?
Well, I started out as working in the gas station I worked in before I left for the service.
Okay. That's down in Pennsylvania.
That's down in Pennsylvania, Brookville.
Okay.
And then my dad came down to visit, and he said, well, he was a tool pusher out in the gas fields.
Mm-hmm.
He said, oh, you don't want to work in that gas station. He says, come on up to Wellsville. And I said, I'll get you a good job up there, which I did. And I worked at that probably for maybe a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And it was way out in the country, way up, and it's cold, and and you had to sleep and stay in some sleazy hotel, and you get onion sandwiches for lunch. And so I said, I don't think this is for me. So I came back to Brookville and got married, worked in a storage garage for a while, and then went to work for a contractor.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned the carpenter business there. I became a journeyman carpenter.
Okay.
So then I opened my own, I went in business with a guy named Dale Fryer, just general contracting.
Mm-hmm.
We had that a couple 3 years, and he got a big offer somewhere, and I wanted to start a cabinet and sign shop, so I did that. And I don't know, I had that a couple 3 years. And then there was turmoil among the troops, so I went to Florida for a while, and was down there 5 years. Then I came back. I came to Wellsville, New York, where my father lived,
Mm-hmm.
and I got a job there in the CE air preheater. They build the big Youngstrom air preheaters, and I worked there. Well, then I started out in the shop, and I worked out there for a year, and then I went over into engineering, and I was there the rest of the time for about 18, 19 years.
Okay. I mean, you've had a variety of different jobs, and in some ways you could even say careers between the carpet and flooring and so on and so forth. How did the Navy or the military experience relate to any of that? Did any of your training come into play? Any of those things, or even the GI Bill, did any of that apply to you or help you?
It saved my life, really. When I was working on the rig with my dad there, we were pulling pipe out of a well. Well, he said, we got the pipe all out anyway, and they have these gigantic bull wheels where the drilling cable wraps around, and he said, he told me we're going to put the pulleys up at the top of the rig there's a triple pulley and a double pulley. That's probably a good ton of metal there in both of them. And I watched the guy tie the rope around to pull it up, around the drilling cable to pull it up. And I thought to myself, something wrong here. I don't like the way he's doing that. Well, anyway, my dad told me to go over to the bull wheels and spool it, to take cable on there until it got tension on it. So I did. I got this big gin pole, and I went over and I was spooling on there. And he said, "Okay, that's good." He said, "It'll spool itself." Now, I took one step. In the meantime, there was an old man standing out by the pitman on the gangway, probably about as far as we hear of that wall over there. Mm-hmm. And I had this in the back of my mind, there's something ain't right here. And I had this pole in my hand, and this guy was watching the tools go up, and his mouth flew open, just like that. I knew then what happened. I took this pole, and I come down, I pole vaulted right out of there, out of the way, and all this stuff come crashing down right where I was standing. Wow. So that's where my Navy training came in. My dad thought I was under this stuff. He'd come out from the bell hall, and he thought I had it. Mm. But maybe there's a guardian angel out there. Never saw the old guy again. But I knew that right then there was. Well, what had happened was I hit my big toe when I come down with that gin pole, mashed my big toe. Mm-hmm. But
so that a lifesaver, but really not much application from your service days to your later life.
Only except that I watched it. I knew how to tie knots, and I knew that knot wasn't going to work.
Yeah, I can understand that. Excuse me. Let me think here for a moment. What have I not covered that you would like to tell? We're in a project here where people who have no knowledge or nearly no knowledge of World War II are going to hear Jim Wonderling and see Jim Wonderling. What do you want to tell them about World War II?
Well, this movie that about, I can't think of who put it on now, about the invasion of Normandy there. Mm-hmm. Well, that was the kind of boats that we took the troops in, for the attack troops in. Right. When we couldn't get the ship in there, we put them in these boats and take them in. And my wife's youngest daughter saw that. She said, "You did that?" I said, "Yes." "How many times?" I said, 4. "And you're still alive?" I said, "Well, back then, all the young kids wanted to get in the service. Even the girls were trying to get in, to the waves of the wax of the Marines there." Yeah. And the attitude aboard ship, I think, was very good, in spite of all of we had casualties on there. We had our shipmate was killed, some of them wounded, But the morale was always good. I mean, there was never anybody said, "Boy, I'm sorry I did this," or "I wished I hadn't have done this." I never heard that from anybody. And
What was it, your ship, or was it the attitude of the time?
I think it was the attitude of the time.
Okay.
I really do, yes. Because you could go down any street in this country and you'd see flags hanging in there.
Very much like what we saw after September 11th.
You're right, yeah. Yeah, and it was a total effort, and that was the one time when the United States of America all worked together. They came together, and this shows what we can do when we work together. But I think that we have a tendency to forget. And too often when we forget, then we have to repeat a lot of times these things.
We make the same mistakes
And,
again.
Yeah, and I know one of my friends aboard ship, their shipmates, he died and he wasn't 17 yet. He lied his age to get in. And he said, if they ever shoot that flag down, he said, I'll climb up and hold it with my bare hands. That's how he felt. And he already lost a brother on a PT boat over there. It was in Anson. But I think the togetherness was terrific. And I hate to see tragedy happen to bring this back. It should never go away. And I don't know why it does. Maybe that's just one of these things that happens. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
there are those who say that the same thing happened after World War I, that led into World War II. That there wasn't the patriotism until things got hot again, and Pearl Harbor invaded and so on. Obviously I don't have the experience of that, but there does seem to be that wave, the ebb and flow of patriotism and so on. I notice on your hat you've got some insignias. Are those from veteran organizations that you belong to?
This was just a patriotic thing. I got the combat vet thing from one of our reunions, and this is the amphibious emblem. I have one there. Now the bottom part of that's not legal anymore. It says WW2 amphibious force. The emblem is legal. Okay, and this is just something I ordered from the. But I just designed a logo, a banner for the New York State Amphibious Forces Incorporated. And that will, we fly, or we can do a flag. Flags cost a lot of money. And but we had banners made, 3x3 banners, and it has the logo on it, and the circle, and then 13 stars for 13 original states.
Okay.
And 13 original buttons on our uniform.
Okay.
And then there's a rope that encircles it.
Okay. So you're a member of this in New York?
New York State Amphibious Forces Association.
Okay. When you're a member of those organizations, does it bring back memories? What does it do for you to be a member of those organizations that relate back to your days in the service?
Well, one thing is, we just don't always just sit down and talk stories, But you have to understand that on an LST, I'd say 90% of them, or maybe more, there's only one crew that was ever on it. They were a family.
Okay.
It wasn't like a battleship, aircraft carrier, big destroyer, things. They had guys coming and going all the time. You might end up with a little group of friends, but on an LST, you were a family.
Okay.
And this is kind of what we feel that the amphibious force didn't get the recognition it should have gotten.
Okay.
Because we were not a glorified outfit. We were indispensable, or dispensable, I should say. I mean, we went out on the beach and we think, okay, they get their cargo there. If they don't get back, you know, we're not going to worry. We got another 100 or two we can put back out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I noticed when they take films, the films of the war, you'll see an LST, just like this is gone, you know, then they're shooting on something else, you know, out in the harbor, the big ships, and, so on like that. So we just feel that we didn't get the recognition we should have gotten.
Okay.
And that was the reason they started the New York State chapter, and I organized a local chapter.
Oh, okay. Is that a very large, or a fairly large organization? How many guys are there like you who were in the amphibious forces?
Actually, I've had, off of my own ship, I've had about 4 or 5 attend. Most of them don't seem to be interested or too old to get there or something, I don't know. But generally at our meetings, which are getting better and better, we have maybe once a year at our reunions, we'll have maybe 60, 70 people there.
Oh, that's great.
And at our local meetings, we have 40. Yeah.
Wow.
And Long Island chapter has 100, almost 200 people. And there's a Western chapter that has about 50 or 60.
Wow, that's great. That's great.
So, you know, it just, we just get together and sometimes we have newspaper articles like Garth Wade. You know Garth?
Sure.
Well, he used to give us some write-ups.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's like I say, I told my son that. He was on the aircraft carrier, and I said, he wanted to know why I'm doing all this, and I said, because we were family. These guys were like my brothers, really, even more so.
Yeah.
I don't know how they felt
shared
about me.
shared danger is always something that keeps people very tight to each other. Even people, I've always believed that even people who you might not be close to under other circumstances become very close when you've shared danger together.
Yes, you do.
It's just one of those things. Jim, we're coming towards the end of the tape, and I don't have any more questions to ask you, so one final opportunity for you to enlighten the people who will see this tape about anything relating to your time in the service.
Well, one thing, I wouldn't trade the experience for anything, and the Navy, especially, I had clothes like I never had before. Made me feel like I was something more than I really was, you know, and they fed you good. And since I've gotten out, the government has bought my first house in GI loan, and they've offered medical assistance, you know, and so on like that, which works out very well, you know. So I didn't get any great big lump sums or anything like that, but through the years, it's all added up.
I'm sure it has. I'm sure it has.
And to me, there's no other branch of service but the Navy, because there's something about it, about the sea. The first night I was aboard ship, it was exactly like I thought it was going to be. We were doing this, and I could hear squeak, squeak, you know. And that's the way I envisioned it was going to be. And I went to sleep and just slept like a baby. My first night.
Jim, thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure meeting you.
Well, it has been for me too.
And that concludes our interview.
What do you do, edit that and take some of the bleeps out of it?
Not me.
No?
I'm not an editor.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I could tell you they didn't cover, but.
And I'm at the Chemung County Historical Society with Harold James Wonderling. And my name is Heather Wade. I'm the archivist here at the Historical Society. This is the second part of an interview for the Veterans History Project with Mr. Wonderling. And, okay. Could you tell me a little bit about boot camp? And you were just talking about the food, but could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, the food, you know, they have these long tables, and they'd have all of this food on there, and I was used to potatoes and tomatoes and, you know, the simple things in life. And they have all this. I had no idea what it was. And I'd get down and I'd look at it, and if you stopped too long, you got some anyway, whether you wanted it or not, if you stopped to look at it like that. So you had to learn to hold your tray back if you didn't want it. But I would just go ahead and let them fill it up until you couldn't get any more on it, and then I'd go and eat it, and I loved it. A lot of times they had no idea what it was, but I didn't care because I liked it anyway. But one thing about it, everything that you took you had to eat. You weren't allowed to have anything left on your tray when you went to the scullery. And that was kind of tough on a lot of kids because they were used to just eating what they wanted, and if they didn't want the rest of it, well, you know, they'd leave it on their plate. But that's not the way it was there. And but I didn't have any problem with that. And I learned to eat a lot of things that I would not eat and when I went there. Like sweet potatoes, tomatoes, stewed tomatoes, any number of things. But I got so hungry several times when I was on duty, didn't get to the chow hall until late. The only thing they had left was a bunch of stuff I never ate before, I didn't like anyway. And I ate it and discovered it was not bad at all. So ever since that, it's been fine. So it was a good training. And
do you know what happened to the people who didn't clean up their plates before they went to the scullery?
they'd make them sit there until they ate it.
Okay.
Yeah, they weren't allowed to leave. I've seen guys sitting there gagging. Well, like maybe there would be, I remember my one buddy I went in the Navy with, and he had, apparently it was pork chops with a little bit of fat. Well, he was just a little skinny kid anyway, and they told him he had to eat that. And he says, I can't eat that. And he said, yes, you can. Well, he did, and I felt sorry for him. I stood there and waited for him until he got done. But he had a hard time with that. So, but then board ship, then everything that we had there was like dehydrated. 1944, I went to one supply ship to get supplies, and I remember these frozen chickens were frozen in 1942. It had a date right on them. But, you know, no one ever got sick. I never knew of anyone getting sick on the food. So, but they were frozen hard, you know, they were just like a rock. But dehydrated potatoes weren't too bad. Dehydrated eggs were terrible because generally they were green instead of nice and yellow like you would think. What we call figs, I guess, we called them sea onions. They were okay. The bread that we had on there when we first went on had weevils in it, and little black things, and little yellow or white weevils, I guess they were. And I was picking those things out, you know, and you didn't have much left when you got done. And somebody says, "What are you picking them out for? Why don't you just eat them?" And I said, "Yeah, I might just as well, I guess." So. So I did. Anyway, the baker was on there that baked the bread. I became very good friends with him just in the last, I would say, 10 years. And he lives at Seneca Falls. And he said that the first batch of flour that we got on there had weevils in it. But after our shakedown cruise, we got all new supplies on there, and it was okay from then on. But we'd get troops on there, and they would eat the same thing that we ate. That's what they were fed. And I had more than one of them come up to me and say, "Hey, Swabby, how come you guys feed us all this this crap, and when we leave, you have all the good food. I said, it's even better when you're on here than it is when you're not on here. They give you the best of everything. Now, he didn't believe me, but that's the way it was. But I think I weighed 140 pounds when I went in, and I think I lost 10 pounds from the time we started our shakedown cruise to the time we got over in the New Hebrides group. Because I really couldn't eat the food, and I didn't feel like eating anyway, because I never really and truly got seasick, but I got so I didn't really feel good. You know, food didn't sound too good to me. Mm-hmm. So I had a picture taken of me in LCVP, and you could just see that was nothing but little bones poking through my clothes, you know. But after, well, I picked up weight in boot camp. And I think I even grew an inch in that 6 weeks. I just seemed like, you know, altogether different. I guess it affects different people different ways. Some guys come out of there kind of grouchy, but I was happy. And I loved the Navy uniform. I loved being in the Navy. I'd never seen anything bigger than a mud puddle until I got aboard ship. And so that's pretty much. I know we would get potatoes when a lot of times if we'd go to a place like Australia, we would get fresh. We'd get fresh eggs. We'd get milk. We'd get pineapple, apples, oranges, and all that stuff. And like, I loved eggs, so you could have 2 eggs. 2 fried eggs. So I'd go down to the bottom of the ladder to the chow hall, and I'd stand down there and wait. Everybody come down and say, if you don't want your eggs, put them right here. And I think I got 8 eggs that morning. And, people don't like them, you know, but they were good. And they'd put the fresh fruit right down on the tank deck, open up the crates, and you get on and help yourself to it. And I'd eat 8 or 10 oranges a day until they were all gone. But generally speaking, I figured that we probably I always felt that we had the best food that was available, that was possible to have at that particular time. We had the best training, we had the best leaders, we had the best equipment, and I always felt that we had the best of everything. You know, we didn't lack for anything really. I didn't think. Maybe we did. Then we didn't know any better, and that's the way I felt. But I know, like, I don't think that a lot of sailors would live under the conditions that we did, because we had no ventilation, no air conditioning, and in the tropics, you know, that sun beating down you, probably 110 degrees every day, and on that steel deck, and my bunk was only that far from the main deck. You know, you had to crawl up in there sideways. If you got up too quick, you bumped your head on on the pipes and cables and everything going overhead. But what we sweated out, and I guess we complained, you know, like anybody would, but there was nothing that could be done about it, I guess, so we survived it. That was the main thing. So I don't know what else I can tell you about.
Do you remember your first days in boot camp?
My first days? Oh, yeah.
What was your first impression?
My first impression was I was scared to death. And and rumors would go around. My first day there, you hear these guys that have been there a while, they say, hey, you guys are going to get some propeller shot, you know, and I said, what's that? Well, it has a propeller on it. They put it in a crank, and, you know, like this. Said, no kidding. And it even got to the point to where I even went to the CO and knocked on his door, and that was like walking in on God's territory, you know. And And I asked him about that, and he just laughed. He said, no. I said, there's nothing to that. And now I think how foolish I was to believe that all of these things, you know. But that you know, when you're, what, 16 years old, 17, you think you know a lot, but you really don't know too much of anything. And it was, yeah, and everything was so big. Everything, you know, there's thousands of people in all of these huge buildings, and I thought, if I ever leave here, I'll never find my way back. And the drill halls, and I was amazed because, like I said, I grew up out in the boonies, and this was all quite overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And then I think, I believe they started to give the shots right away. And now that didn't bother me so much, but it bothered one of the guys that I went in with, my childhood buddy there, I went to school with. He'd pass out when he'd get a shot. So I said to him, we were going through the line, I said, are you going to be okay? Oh yeah, he said, no problem. He said, I'm going to be fine. I said, okay, now don't pass out. He said, I won't, I promise you I won't. Well, anyway, they give him a shot, and I looked at him like that, and pretty soon I see him starting to go backwards, you know, and I got a hold of him and held him like this. I said, you all right? He shook his head a little bit, and he finally steadied himself, and then he was okay. But, it was like a shot in this arm, a shot in this arm, and that was tetanus shots. Mm-hmm. And they make your arm so sore. Mm-hmm. Well, not only that, but I think we got a yellow fever shot, a vaccination, and another tetanus shot. And then we had these calisthenics where you had to do it till you couldn't do it anymore. I mean, like sit-ups, push-ups, chin-ups, all this stuff. You did it till you, and they would challenge you to do so many, and you would try your best to do it. I could always come close, but I never could quite get to what the requirement was. But your muscles would be so sore. I mean, just like you'd touch yourself, it would hurt. And then they give us this silly medicine, the experimentation thing. I think it was sulfa, supposedly. And boy, that affected some of the guys real bad.
What was it supposed to be for?
You know, I don't know why they gave. Sulfa just came on, was new at the time, and I guess they wanted to see what effects it would have on you, whether there was anything wrong with you or not. And a lot of the guys would pass out. It affected my eyes, and I found out a way that they give you the pill, and then you walk up to what they call the scuttlebutt. There's a fountain, and they have a guard there. You'd have to show them the pill, then you'd have to show them putting it in your mouth and getting the drink. Well, I discovered a way I could fake this whole thing, and my eyes cleared right up, and I was okay. But I learned it from a magician at Boy Scouts. They had a magician there one time. He showed you how to hide things in your hand. So it worked good. Unfortunately, I had big hands, so I could hide things pretty good. But you know, that we'd have inspection. They'd come around and they'd have this officer with braids on his hat, and I would just get stiff as a board. I was so scared at inspection time, and they'd walk up to you and say, "Hey, sailor, what time is it? 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Navy time." Or did you shave today? No, sir. Well, why not? Well, sir, I don't have anything to shave. Said, well, you shave anyway. So it was so funny. I'd go in there in the morning, I'd look in the mirror, you know, and I'd get my razor out, and I felt so silly doing this because I didn't have any whiskers at all. Just, I don't know, I guess there was some baby fuzz on there, but I couldn't even see that. So then we had 12 days leave, and then we went aboard ship. Had to report back to reported back to Great Lakes, Illinois, and then we went from there. We went from there to Camp Bradford, Virginia, I believe it was, gunnery practice. 40 millimeter they had down there on the beach, and they had some of the bigger guns, the 5-inch 50s and 3-inch, whatever they were. But they put me on a 40 millimeter, and well, that fired a shell is about that long and about that big around, about like that. There'd be 5 in a clip put in there. And anyway, what they did, they had a plane with a target trailed on the back of it. And we were supposed to I had the up and down motion in the firing of the gun, and the guy on the other side would have the horizontal motion. And what we were supposed to do was just track this target and learn to lead it, so that your shell and the target met, you know, like that. But if you'd shoot right at it, you'd always shoot in behind it. So we did this for probably a couple, 3 hours, and then he says, okay, we're going up to the ordnance locker and get some ammunition. So we're carrying down these big ready boxes full of ammunition, and I said to the trainer there, I said, the instructor, I said, are we going to fire this thing? Because I could hear the concussion, feel the concussion from other guns going off, you know, and I thought, holy cow, this is really something. And he said, well, of course we're going to. He said, what do you think you're here for? I said, well, I didn't think we're going to have to fire one of these things. He said, hey, get with it, sailor. So when the first time it went off, I probably jumped off of that seat about a foot. But I got used to it. And then we went to, I think, back to Navy Pier, Chicago. And then from there, I believe we went to down to Jeffersonville, Indiana, pick up our ship. Mm-hmm. Now, I built these ships practically in hay fields. I don't know if you're familiar with LST, you know, and only what it had, but the Dravo shipyard in Pittsburgh was building one every 2.5 days. And that's amazing when you think of everything that goes into a ship in 2.5 days. But Kaiser, I guess it was, developed a way of building a section here, and a section here, and a section here, and then they just all put them all together and weld them all together. So, that's basically what they were, was built in. To build them in a couple places in Indiana. Jeffersonville was one. I don't remember the name of the other place. Mm-hmm. You probably have heard it several times. And in Pittsburgh, they built them, and I think there was over 1,000 of them built. I don't know, 1,050 or something like that, 1,035.
Now, did you know about their fabrication at the time, or did you look that up later?
I looked that up later. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that through all the material that has come by me. Yeah, I picked that up later. No, I didn't know. I had no idea what an LST was. I know when the first day I walked aboard, I had the ramp down and I walked down the pier with my sea bag on my shoulder. And I thought, we get all of these guys and that thing's going to sink, because it looked like it was about ready to sink anyway. And but boy, I'll tell you, the first day aboard ship, it was exactly like I thought it was going to be. It was great. I loved it. Yeah, and I was a captain's talker. I think I've gone through this before, but he would give me orders, and then I'd have to use the battle phones to give the orders to the rest of the ship. And I think I didn't say things exactly like he wanted me to say them. So anyway, they got a new talker, and they eventually put me on as a helmsman. And they said, you're going to be a helmsman. I said, no, I'm not. They said, yes, you are. I said, I'm not going to do it. It scared me. I didn't want to steer this thing. But the next day, I was up there doing it anyway. And through all of this, I learned that I could do almost the impossible, because we would have times when we would be up for like 72 hours and no sleep, nothing, hardly anything to eat even in battle. And you learn that you're a much better person, and you can do things than you think you could. And it kind of prepared me a little bit for civilian life, because I actually had I had quit school. I didn't have a diploma. I had no occupation, no profession, or nothing. And one thing that it did, it kind of gave me a little bit of feeling that I had some leadership qualities, and that's proven out to be true. And which was probably the last thing that I'd ever. But they made me give me a chance to get my rate. They called me into the ward room and asked me if I would take over Section 3, because we had 2 section leaders that were wounded and had to leave the ship. And I stood there for a couple seconds, I guess too long, and he says, "Well, you're going to take it, or aren't you?" And I said, yes, sir, I'll take it. And it was good for me, because I had the 13 guys, 13 or 14, I guess, in my section. And I never knew why they called it Section 3 until just the other day. I read about the deck layout, and the tank deck was considered Deck 3. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing the things that you learn 70 years after, it's simple little things like that too, but it was a sturdy ship, and our shell plates were only, I think, 3/8 of an inch thick. Like battleships had, and some of the other ships had as much as 6 inches of armor plate. We had this, and we tied up to the battleship Pennsylvania, and they have a scupper that stuck out where the water run off the deck, and it stuck out probably, I don't know, maybe about that far. Well, when we come alongside, see, they sat down low in the water. We were up here like this. And that scupper caught in the side of the ship and just opened it right up, went right through steel beams and everything, just like a can opener, Mm-hmm. So, but it did some wonderful things, and Winston Churchill, when they first developed the LST, which I think England had a lot to do with it, he said, when they gave him all of the statistics on what it would do and how they were going to use it and one thing and another, and he said, "The destinies of our 2 nations depend on some damn thing called an LST." And ever since, I think it's only been probably in the last maybe 10 or 15 years that the military has admitted to how important this ship was, and all the amphibious ships, because it was basically a secret weapon. And we told the Japanese that MacArthur told them when we were coming into the Philippines that we had a secret weapon. That's what it was. It was the amphibious ships. And we were called the Dungaree Navy. We were the dirty guys that shoveled all the dirt and did all the nasty things. Yeah, we didn't have any ice cream parlor or anything like that. So.
Now you mentioned a shakedown cruise. Can you tell me about that?
Well, shakedown, when the ship is launched, then the crew goes aboard, and chances are, like we didn't have a superstructure on it. They had just the wheelhouse, like that was one flight or one deck up off the main deck. And to make sure that the motors are all working okay, that there's no leaks, that all the pumps are working all right. You know, like your stern anchor, your regular anchor, and all the communication systems are in order. Like, well, we had a very primitive radar on there. Had to make sure that was working okay. And then the crew has to get used to the ship. You know where they're supposed to be, what their duties are, and that's basically what a shakedown is. And they get back into port, and if there's anything wrong, then you have people there to fix it for you. If you have guys in the crew that aren't going to make it as a part of the team, which some of them had chronic seasickness. I don't know if you've ever seen anybody with that way. I mean, actually, this guy, one guy turned green. Mm-hmm. He actually looked green to me because he was just, I think he would have died in a couple more days if I hadn't got him off there. You know, it just weeds out all of the things that don't work. And then like you'll go maybe to another port and they'll finish putting all your superstructures up and doing all the other refinements. And chances are you take it out for another 3 or 4 days and try it out and make sure all of that stuff's working. So that's what shakedown is. Mm-hmm. It's a fun thing. When we first was in training, what they had was an LST marked out on the concrete, just a, periphery. And they had this is supposed to be the wheelhouse, this is a gun tub, blah, blah, blah. And after you got off the main deck, nobody knew where they were supposed to go because there was nowhere to go. But it gives you some idea of the size of the ship. This is pretty much where we ever saw one. And give you some feeling of where you were supposed to be at any given time. And we had on our shakedown cruise, we had supposedly a damage in the aft cruise quarters down in the storage room. And it was reported, like there was a 6-inch or 10-inch hole blown in below the water line, and so you have guys that bring the shoring, pieces of 4x4, they're different lengths, and then you have a guy with a bag of wedges, another guy with a couple hammers, a sledgehammer, and a hatchet, and the other guys with this big patch, a big steel patch with a rubber gasket on it. So we raced down there, and I'm trying to think what my job was. I don't remember at the time. I think I was to carry like a timber down there, some size. So anyway, we got this thing all shored up, and now we're talking about right over the main engines. All right. So this guy's putting this patch up there, and we put the shoring up against it, and we brace it against the overhead and the bulkhead and the deck, and drive the wedges in and everything. They give you so much time to do this, so you've got 2 minutes to do this. Well, here comes the captain down the stairs, and down the ladder. Takes one look at it. He says, "Well done, man. Well done." He turns around, walks up the ladder, and I'm standing there watching him go, and this whole thing fell down. It's come all crumbling down. One of those timbers went right across my big toe and smashed my big toe on my left foot. And so eventually the toenail had to be taken off. Well, what I did, I cut a hole in my shoe for my toe because it hurt so bad. And you had to be almost dead before they let you lay down. And so that was no excuse not to do your duties. And so the 4 of us were moving a we call a ready box, ammunition box. It was loaded with ammunition. It's probably 4 feet long, maybe 2 feet wide. and about 3 feet high. But the thing of it is, the thing weighed probably about 400 pounds. So, and there was nowhere to get a hold of it hardly, only up at the very top. And so we had to move it probably about 10 feet. So we're up there shuffling along like this, and I had the feeling that this guy was going to let loose, you know. And he did, and I had my foot right under the where it sits on the deck, and I jerked my foot like that, and it caught my big toenail and ripped it right off my toe, just like that. So the doctor didn't have to do it; I did it myself. So it healed right up after that. But life aboard ship, it was something you'd never forget. And people wonder why my family would say, well, why do you even talk about this? I said, because I was a teenager when I went in. They took 2 years out of my life. They took me, I was just a kid back in the hills of Pennsylvania. They take you out there and they teach you to kill people. And I said, that's quite a transition from learning you don't do this to you do, you know, yes, you do, you have to. And so when you're dealing with other people of the same age, basically. I mean, we were all kids, and we're all trying to grow up in a hurry. And anybody over 25 years old would go pappy. But I made a lot of friends. As a matter of fact, I got a letter from a guy named Grant Lee, had listed one of my best buddies I haven't seen since 1946. And I'm almost afraid to call the number, and they'll tell me he's dead, you know, because out of, I think there's only a fourth of World War II veterans that are still alive. And so whatever we're going to do, we have to be doing it because, you know, time runs out. But anything else I could answer for you?
Would you like to show me what you brought and maybe explain things to me?
Well, yeah, actually, I think this is probably pretty much all the letters that I wrote. I may have written more, but this is what I happened to find in when I cleaned house many years ago. And, you know, it's kind of funny, too, because a lot of these you see free on it. Mm-hmm. And airmail is 6 cents. This is something recent here. I'll have to see what that is. Mm-hmm. But some of these...
This one looks like it's recent, too.
You see?
This one looks recent.
Yeah, what that is. Let's see what this is. Yeah, that's a recent one.
Now, who did you write to?
Pardon?
Who did you write to?
I wrote to my aunt and uncle because I was given away to them when I was 2.5 years old, and so that's where I lived. And the strange thing happened there. They were supposed to adopt me, and I didn't know that they didn't. And when I went into the service, I didn't have a I didn't have a birth certificate. I've never had one. I can't get one for some reason. I don't know why. I've tried everywhere. And the only way I could get in was I had a baptism certificate with my right name on it. And I ran all through school as Smith, and that was not my name. So that created a problem. So I wrote to my aunt and uncle, John and Tilly Smith, who all these letters are addressed to. And I didn't know she saved them till I come home. And
Now, last fall you said you had never read them since you wrote them. Is that still true? Have you read them yet?
Pardon?
Have you read the letters that you wrote? Have you reread them?
Have I what?
Have you read them?
Read them? Oh, yes. Yeah, I went through all of them.
You did? Okay.
And there's, you know, I found out that I told them very little about what was going on. Mm-hmm. Very little. I'd write more casual things, you know, like me and my buddy went on Liberty, or
Oops.
it was hot today or something like that. But very little, because I figured they'd cut the letter up, and what's the use of writing a bunch of stuff they're going to cut out of it?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I reread them all, and there's, I think, a couple, three in there that I made a couple remarks that I probably wouldn't make now.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't make them about anybody, I made them about myself,
Mm-hmm.
but the inference was kind of a no-no. But this,
Mm-hmm.
I traded a native lady a suit of winter underwear for this.
Where?
That was probably in the Admiralty Islands somewhere,
Okay.
right around there. And I've held on to it ever since, just simply because I thought it was strange that the lady in the tropics wanted a pair of winter underwear.
Why do you think she wanted them? Would you
I don't know. I think
resell
what they
them?
did, they cut the part of them out and wore them that way.
Okay.
But see, we had 2 suits of winter underwear, and then they sent us over the tropics. So I still have my 2 Navy blankets I had on my bunk when I was in the Navy overseas. I didn't bring those, but I didn't think that'd be necessary anyway. And now this is I got this from a native. This has Bataan, Philippine Luzon on the back of it, and it's just a copper handmade knife. Probably not worth much more than just a souvenir.
Now, did you purchase that for a reason? Did you just like the way it looked, or
What, the knife?
the knife? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'd probably give him a couple of pesos for it or something. Maybe
Just as a
$1.
souvenir?
Pardon?
As a souvenir?
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much. Well, these people would make all kinds of stuff that you could buy for practically nothing. And I had some other stuff too. Some stuff I got off of a Jap airplane. I finally, I guess, threw that away. I don't have that anymore.
What was it?
It was the manufacturer, whoever built the plane, it had all the data on there. All that. It was just a little block of wood that was mounted up under the wing.
Do you remember why you took that?
I guess it just because I wanted to say it. I'd had a piece of an old Jap airplane, I guess,
Okay.
I don't know what I was thinking at the time. It's hard to say, after that many years, a lot of things that you thought aren't there anymore. And sometimes even what you think was real was not like you thought it was. It was some other way. Somebody, 2 guys saw the same thing would tell you 2 different stories, But anyway, here's a bunch of pictures in here of my shipmates and so on, and a bunch of some stuff about the Sphinx that we're going to bring to Dunkirk, New York. Right now it's down the James River. I went down, it was on it for a while, and looked it all over. It was converted into a RL-24. I don't remember, it was an LST, had a number on it before that. I think it was like 963. And it was built at Hingman, Maryland. Yeah, in Maryland. That's something. Didn't know that. But we're trying to. But we'll do. I think the Navy. President Bush has signed a document that they will transport this ship up to Dunkirk, and we have a spot all set for it. It's disabled. The engines have been disabled, so it'll have to be towed. I don't know if the Navy will tow it as a training exercise or it'll be a private concern. Could be either or. And I'll leave this stuff here with you if you want to look through it.
Definitely.
And sort it out. But what it is, some of it's a lot of the local chapter that Bob Brightong and I started here in 1976. And there's some newspaper articles in there. Like I say, pictures of snapshots that I had taken. A lot of the guys seemed to think that I had a lot of the snapshots, and I didn't really think of that, at the time. But I had a little Brownie reflex camera. That's what I used. And there's all of the guys that were aboard ship are all listed in here. And there's a Jap flag, and just a bunch of stuff that you're welcome to look through and see if there's anything.
Great. And may we read your letters as well, or
They're not long.
could we read them? Would you leave them here for us to read as well?
Yeah, you're welcome to read them.
Well,
sure.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, like most of the time I only wrote one page. It might be maybe just one side, maybe two sides, but seldom. It probably wouldn't take me more than 20 seconds to read any one of them.
Okay.
Because like I say, she wrote to me, my aunt wrote every day. And I would get, and she wrote the same thing, basically every day. It wasn't too much to write about, I guess. It was new, and I would get, if I didn't get letters, or we didn't get any mail for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, I'd get a stack of letters like that. So, and things from home, packages that came, most of the time they were pretty well beat up. If they sent cookies, there was nothing but crumbs in there every time you got to it. And a lot of the stuff had gotten wet, and but it was always nice to get the package anyway. You had something to open up,
Right.
And I think you want those. So yes, help yourself.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
whenever, yeah, I felt a little concerned that I didn't hit on the training in boot camp there, and about the food especially, and the training. But I felt I was in the greatest Navy in the world, and I still feel that way, like, I was, and I was proud of it. And I went in with 4 other guys from my hometown. One of them, his ship was sunk, and he was a little guy. I told you couldn't eat the fat. Well, he went down with the ship. We were all in LSTs over in the South Pacific, every one of us. It was Bobby Stewart. And P. Sarvey, his ship was hit twice. No, it was sunk. He was rescued, put on another ship, and that ship was sunk, and he had to be rescued again, second time. And he was wounded in the meantime. My best buddy Ramsey, and was wounded, and his ship was hit, but it didn't sink. I think they managed to bring it back to the States. And we had several near misses. But me and Bill Ripple, one of the other guys, we come out of it pretty good shape. We didn't, physically. Yeah, I saw him. Like I've seen my buddy Ramsey quite often, but he's a guy that he don't care that much one way or another. I'm into this thing with both my feet, trying to find buddies. And, we have organizations, a state organization. I was president for a while. I'm a director now, and I designed our logo. I should have brought a hat to show you their new logo on it. And I saw Bill Ripple one time in Pennsylvania there. I don't know if this is stuff you want to hear or not. And anyway, he owned a hotel in some place in Pennsylvania there. Can't remember the name of the place now. But when I went in, he was at the end of the bar talking to some people, and I sat down there and just listened for a while, and finally I said, "Hey, buddy, anybody around here by the name of Bill Ripple?" He turned around and he looked at me, and I'll tell you what, this guy went ballistic. He came over and he hung on to me and hugged me and hugged me. He wouldn't let loose, you know, and I kept backing up and backing up. And boy, I'll tell you what, he was glad to see me. And I'd like to see a lot of the guys that I was on board ship with, but we all went our different ways. We come from all over the country. And everybody had their thing to do to get back into civilian life. A lot of guys got married, which I did. I shouldn't have. But anyway, that was the thing that you did then, you know, you got married and you had kids. But everything turned out pretty good. So it was it's just one of those things. It only lasted 2 years for me, but it has a forever air about it you'll never ever forget. You know, it's just there. And I guess I can get emotional about it at times. It depends, you know. But I was hoping I wouldn't do that when I was here. We had a Captain Eddie Marsland. I have a picture of him in here somewhere. Greatest guy in the world as far as a captain goes. I mean, he knew how to run that ship. And when we'd go on the invasion, he'd put that thing right up on the beach there, just as pretty as anything. Our GIs walked off of there. They didn't have to wade water from here to Horseheads to get ashore. And he got a little peeved at me because there was a Jap plane coming right at us, right off the fantail, and I asked permission to fire on it. And they said, no, hold your fire, hold your fire. And I'm looking almost down this guy's mouth, you know, and by the time they turned, they swung, and when they did, the tail gunner was strafing us, and he'd come around. I could see these rounds coming right through the water like that. So I made myself as small a target as possible, and they went underneath our gun tub, and some went right over our head. And well, anyway, then the thing went into a cloud, because there was fires on the beach that they had set, and there was all this ammunition dumps were on fire and everything. And he said, commence firing. Well, I couldn't see anything to fire at. If I did fire, it'd be just into space. So I told him, I said, I can't see that the plane is gone. Well, commence firing anyway. Well, I didn't. So then he gets us all up on the main deck later on, tells all the guys, if we disobey orders like Wonderling, none of us will get out of here alive. And I went right up and I buttonholed him right there on the spot. And I said, geez, you know, I'm telling you why I didn't do this, because I was firing right over the Army's where they were stationed over there anyway, you know. And I didn't want to do that. So anyway, it wasn't for me to make that decision. I should have done what they asked me to do. So about 2 weeks later, he called me up and he says, Wonderling, get your gear together. I'm transferring you to the Dutch Navy. So I did. I packed up all my gear. He gave me an engineer and a bow hookman and an LCVP with a bad compass in it. And he says, okay, he says, now you get over there, the cruiser Trump, they're going to feed you, they're going to pay you. And he says, I don't want to see you again. So I said, well, you know, it was raining so hard, you couldn't see like from here to that wall. And I said, well, you have to give me a bearing. Well, he says, 030 or somebody called up on the conning tower, and they called down a bearing on the cruiser Trump. And And he says, right that way, 020. I said, my compass don't say that. It says something else. Oh yeah, that's right, it's a bad compass. Well, don't worry about it, just go right off the stern. Well, what happened was the ship, it was swinging like this, on the anchor. Well, I went off the stern all right, and in about 10 minutes of like being under Niagara Falls, I come right out into the open. No rain, sun shining, beautiful. Looked like paradise. Little islands, nice blue water. I looked down and here I'm stuck on a sandbar. So anyway, we got off the sandbar and backed off of it. And my crew says, which way are we going now? I said, we're going this way. Are you sure that's right? I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right. So anyway, we did. And we come on to a nest of LCTs. And I asked him where the cruiser Trump was. Well, I had to head for the mainland and go down for 7 miles. It was way down. And so anyway, I got down there and soaking wet. I mean, we were just drenched. And we got aboard, and on our ship, we were drinking Iron City beer with rusted caps, it was all flat and everything. We get over to the cruiser Trump, which is a Dutch cruiser, and they have Pabst Blue Ribbon, Budweiser, say, hey, guess we don't rate. But anyway, I needed a pair of dry shoes or sandals, and there wasn't a sailor on there out of, I think, 1,200 sailors on there that had a foot as big as mine. So they dried my shoes out, dried our clothes out, we went in, took a shower, and they fed us. And I don't know, about 10 o'clock at night, Locio says to me, he was about hooking me, he says, hey, Wonderling, let's go back to the ship. I said, good idea. So we throw our gear, we go up on the gangway, and the gangway watched us, wanted to know where we were going. Told him we was going back to our ship. Well, you can't do that. Well, yes, we can. Well, I'll have to report it to the captain. They said, well, go right ahead, but we're leaving. So he's standing there sputtering while we go down they had a big ladder down the side, went down there, got in our boat, took off. And to get back to the ship, had to go through all of these old sunken ships that were in there with the mast sticking up out of the water. And there was some little islands in there mixed all in with it. And I went 7 miles in the dark, all around through those other ships and everything, ran right into my ship. So yeah, I was pretty hard to lose. And then he sent me out one night for coast watchers. And he says, okay, you're going to go follow this compass reading for a certain distance, and then you'll see a red light, which will be in a tube. And you can only see it for like maybe 40 feet. And if you don't see it and you go by it, you're going to be out in the middle of the Pacific all by yourself. So anyway, I got my crew together and we lowered the LCVP. I went down there and I saw this red light, and we guided it in there and put that thing right up on the beach there. I had no idea what I was getting into, but we did. It went right up there, dropped the ramp. These coast watchers came aboard. There were Filipinos and there was a Australian with them, and got them back to the ship. And I often think about it. Sometimes I lay awake at night and I think, how did I ever find my way around all those places? I'll never know. But I'm one of these guys that get lost in my backyard. But for some reason on the water, I always seem to know where I'm at. It's strange. I guess I was born to be a sailor. But just some of the little strange little things that happen. But he never said a word. I saw him the next morning. Good morning, Captain. He acknowledged it, but he never said a word. Yeah, he was a good guy. We had good officers on there. We had a doctor. Well, most of the ships didn't have a doctor. We had a full-fledged doctor aboard, and he was something else. So we had a tremendous crew. I mean, we were a good crew. And I haven't ever figured out to this day why nobody has ever tried to get us together, you know, for a reunion. I tried. The guys that I knew, I sent them all kinds of information and everything. A couple of them answered back, but nobody ever showed up. Well, I did. There was a couple who did, yes. Mm-hmm. Stanley Little from Delaware, and we had a guy from Massachusetts at Boston. And but every so often I hear about one of them passing away, so it's like I say, I got some names over there, and I want to call them, but I'll figure out a way of doing it so it don't hurt so bad. So, anything else?
I wanted to ask you, did you ever think about a career in the Navy after the war?
Oh, no.
No?
No. Now, if I would know now what I know now, yes, I would have stayed in. I definitely would have.
But then you just wanted to
But I was
get
so
out.
afraid that we were going to get into it with Russia. Okay. And I had nightmares about that. And so, no, all I wanted was out.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
See, I was in 2 years, 1 month, and 26 days. Mm-hmm. But it's like I've heard people say, it wouldn't take $1 million for the experience, I wouldn't do it again for $1 million, you know. So,
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming back and sharing more with us. I appreciate it. If you think of anything else you want to share, then just give me a call. We can do it again.
okay.
Okay. I might have some questions about the letters and and the
Sure,
scrapbook.
yeah, that and anything that's in here
Okay.
that you'd like to know about, well, feel free to give me a call.
I will do that.
Like we have a what do you call it, proclamation from the mayor of Corning. We had our one reunion there when I was president, and there's stuff like that in here too. So a lot of it don't relate clear back to when I was in. It's stuff that's fairly new.
Okay.
But if you want me to elaborate on anything else in there, or right now, I'll be happy to.
Okay.
You know, now since I was here the first time, a lot of things have kind of come, you know, up to my memory. Mm-hmm. But when I was here the first time, I was right off the wall because I was trying to remember things, and the memory was a little hazy. But then, when I think about it, have time to think about it, then I can go back and recall a lot of the things. So it's a great experience, all I can say.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. The Sperry gyro compass is a very large compass that we have in the wheelhouse, and it's on a floating platform, like where it's always stays level, and it was invented by, I'm not sure if it's Elmer Sperry, but that sounds like the right name. And we had an Elmer Sperry aboard ship, and he was standing right there by that compass when we were under attack. We were being strafed by a Japanese plane, and they shot right through the battle ports, little slots about that big, come right through there and killed him. And he was, I just thought it's just kind of ironic that his name was Elmer Sperry, mm-hmm. and he was standing right beside the Elmer Sperry compass. And he told me that the inventor was a relative of his.
It's amazing.
And he was only 17 years old. Mm-hmm. He had lied his age to get in, and he was a big kid, very mature for his age. he had a brother that was officer on a PT boat, and he was killed over there also. And so that's pretty sad, you know, two in one family were killed like that. And I often feel bad because I found his, for some reason, I found his billfold under my mattress. How it got there, I have no clue at all. So I took the thing and give it to the ship's doctor to send back with his belongings. And I would wish that I had gotten his address out so I could have got in touch with his family. And but see, the thing that I lost track of was when the roster that I have here was for the guys that were aboard ship when it came back to the States. It happened to be on it then, and there was other people that were on it, served on there, that had come and gone, and their names aren't on this, and he was one of them. So, as a matter of fact, the time that we also had mortar shells, which were cased in wooden cases, 3 to a case. They were like a triangle like that, and we had those all piled up on the main deck for the Army. And when they strafed us with the incendiary rounds and set those crates on fire, well, what happens is the heat will blow them up. Some shells have to have a percussion, you know, to blow them up. But those would, after they got so hot, would blow up. And we had a bunch of GIs on there, and they picked all those crates up and threw them overboard. And some of them got burned, you know, got burns because the crates were on fire. So they got a medal for doing that, because we had 150 barrels of high octane gas on there also. You can imagine when those things went off and it hit that gas, and the rest of it would still be flying somewhere.
Yeah.
So we were really set.